How's it going, everybody? I'm Kyle from Fantasy Forge Studios.
And I'm Dane from Fantasy Forge Studios.
And we are back with the final part of the Razing of Helix set review. We are going over today the multi-element art and item spotlight cards, which will carry us through to the remainder of the cards in the set. If you haven't joined us thus far, make sure to go back and check out on our YouTube page all of the elements, whether it's the flame, Frost, Electric, Earth, Light, Dark, and this set. Also, you can check out our Heroes of the West review. We have just finished that out, and by the time that this is up, everything should be up for both sets on YouTube. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. And so we are going to be starting with our multi-element cards, which there are 4 of them in total in the Razing of Helix. Starting off with Lessiarch, Terror of the Deep. A couple quick things we did mention in the Heroes of the West set, but it's good kind of reiterating in this. Creatures that are supporter types that have a dual element type, when you rotate them into the activated position to generate mana during your turn in the movement phase, if this card, for example, was a supporter category creature, it is not, but if it was, you could either generate frost mana or dark mana. But it is an attacker, and so whenever it does make attacks against the attacking creature, it hits at both the frost and dark typing, which means there might be some creatures that have resistances and weaknesses to both of them. If that is the case for those elements, what you would do is you would apply the resistance first before multiplying the total damage times 2. And so if it was, for example, the attack dealt, I don't know, 20 damage, and it was reduced by 20 and you times it by 2, then it would be 0 damage. Or if it was 10, or for example, if it was 30 and you multiplied it by 2, it would be 20 damage, etc. Whatever with the attacker or defender type creatures, whenever they're attacking with both elements. You always do the resistance first and then weakness second. Anything else to add to that, Dane?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking, for example, let's take a look at Lessiarch, Terror of the Deep. You see that it is frost mana and darkness mana. So the weakness will always correlate with the first mana. Mana typing on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side will always be the correlation for the resistance. So it does matter which order that they are in.
Absolutely. They don't just look cool because we decided to put them that way. But, yeah, Lessiarch, the Terror of the Deep, he is going to be our first of the 2 multi-element different creatures. He has 110 hit points, so he's a beefy boy. He is a frost type, so he is a little bit beefy. And he has the Captain, Monster, Beast, and Bat keywords, and he is an attacker category creature. He also has the trait Giant Wings, so whenever he is active on the battlefield, this creature may move 3 spaces during your turn in the attack phase, which is really, really good. Essentially, he has his 2 movement that he can use during the movement phase, and then during his turn in the attack phase, he can move an additional 3 spaces, which can mess up all kinds of setting up that your opponent has done in order to block for him, or they have to make contingency plans in order to kind of block him, because he's really, really good at swooping down and attacking life points and also picking off weaker creatures.
Yeah, he does for his attack action during the attack phase. You can choose to spend 1 frost mana and 2 darkness mana to do Goring Talons for 60 damage. And it has the additional effect, move the target to an unoccupied space on your opponent's battlefield. So it's really good again for, especially if you attack first with it, moving opponents so that you can start poking life points or get into creatures that have been a pain in your butt. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And even like carrying like bigger creatures out of position and whatnot. He's very, very useful. But he does promote into Lessiarch, Terror of the Deep EX.
Yeah, he's pretty cool, pretty scary looking. Again, EX creatures, they are more powerful, and you can only have 1 of them on your battlefield at any given time. However, if it is slain by damage or attack, then you lose a hit point or life point. So just be careful where you're placing him. However, he does have 150 hit points, and he is an attacker type creature. He has the Villain, Captain, Monster, Beast, and Bat keywords. He does have the trait Giant Wings, and it's the exact same thing. So this creature may move 3 spaces during your turn in the attack phase, and then his Goring Talons is just stronger. So instead of doing 60 damage, it does 80 damage, and you again move the target to an unoccupied space on your opponent's battlefield.
Yep. And you can choose, instead of doing his attack action for the combat round, during your turn in the movement phase, you can use his EX support action for 2 Frost mana and a Darkness mana, Draining Fangs. So essentially what this does is, during your turn in the movement phase, randomly choose 10 cards in your opponent's discard pile and remove them from the game. So basically you just have your opponent flip them upside down, you shuffle them, and remove whatever cards that you want from the game. And for each creature removed in this way, heal this creature 30 hit points. So it's awesome against a lot of different types of decks, whether it's there's like cards that like your opponent needs in their discard pile, especially later in the game, that they might want to try to get back onto their battlefield, shuffle back in, or it's actually especially good for decks that utilize discard pile and draw things out of discard pile. Basically, it makes it so they're just removed from the game and you can't even use it. So very, very strong. It is kind of a hefty cost, but it is very useful, and it's a good, strong heal that he passively has on him if he is getting lower at hit points. So he is meant to stay on the battlefield for a long time.
Very menacing looking.
And that brings us to our second creature, that is our multi-element type creature, and our last of the creatures in the Razing of Helix, which is Varusik the Cursed Fang. He has 80 hit points, has the Captain, Beast, and Wolf keywords, and he is an attacker type creature. He has the trait Pack Leader, and so, well, first of all, he is a Flame and Earth type, and so he is going to be quick, and he is also going to be hitting decently hard, but he has Pack Leader as his trait, so as long as this creature is active on your battlefield, all of your active creatures with the Wolf keyword, other than this creature, gain the aggressive trait, and their attack actions deal an additional 20 damage. And so that's not specific to primary, so just 28 damage to all creatures that they're attacking, based off of their how many targets they have. But the aggressive trait, essentially what that does is during after the movement phase, both players have finished their turn in the movement phase, but before either player has started their turn in the attack phase, these creatures with the aggressive trait can attack, and so they can perform attack actions. So this is great for a wolf deck. Those that utilize, whether it's the Fell Wolves or the Wild Wolves, or even Avrilla and the Snow Wolves and the Avrilla or Gorgonath Hunters EX battle deck.
Yeah, it's definitely almost key. I would say like you should have him. Even if you don't have his EX, you should have him. But he does have an activate for during the attack phase for 2 flame mana and 1 earth mana, Cursed Fang for 80 damage. And it has the additional effect: the target gains the cursed status ailment for D4 combat rounds. Kyle, what does cursed do?
So if this attack doesn't just outright kill them at or slay them at 80 hit points, if the target is a support type creature and is affected by curse for the D4 combat rounds that is affected by it, it cannot be rotated into the activated position to generate mana. So it basically cripples them from being able to generate mana. If it is a defender type creature, they cannot be rotated into the guard position. And if it is an attacker type creature, it loses 1 of its movement. And so it does kind of different effects on each of the different category creatures, but it cripples each of them at what they are good at. And so curse is really nice, especially if you can throw out a bunch of Cursed Fangs all over the battlefield with this guy. You're going to really mess up your opponent. So, but he does promote into Varusik the Cursed Fang EX.
Oh, he's so scary. I really do like this art. But he does have 120 HP. He is an attacker type, and he is a villain, Captain, Beast, and Wolf. Those are his keywords. He still has the trait Pack Leader, so all of your active creatures with the Wolf keyword, other than this creature, gain the aggressive trait, and their attack actions deal an additional 20 damage. His Cursed Fang now deals 100 damage for the same amount of mana, and it still puts on the cursed status ailment as well for D4 combat rounds. So he's just a stronger version of his primary.
Absolutely. He is a villain, so you can only have him as your only villain on your battlefield at a time, but you can forego using him for his Cursed Fang, and as a support EX action for a Flame, a Earth, and 2 basic mana. He can use Terrifying Howl, which essentially what that does is all of your opponent's active creatures gained the Frightened status ailment for D4 combat rounds with this creature as the source of its fear, meaning Essentially what frighten is if a creature is frightened, the source of its fear, it cannot target it with any action, attack or support action, for the duration. And so he basically won't be attacked by all of your opponent's active creatures for the D4 combat rounds. It is one dice roll for all of the creatures. It's not one for all of them, but basically he gains free reign and he terrifies everything that's on the battlefield for his terrifying howl. It's really amazing late game, honestly, where he can just go around and just have free reign potentially for D4 combat rounds. So pretty good. But that is the last of our creatures in the Razing of Helix, which takes us into our item cards and also our art cards. So we can go ahead and pull up our very first item card, which is going to be the gear card, Battle Axe. There are three different kinds of item cards in this game. Gear cards, which can be attached to creatures and only removed if it is basically discarded. You cannot replace a gear item, as gears each creature can only have one gear item attached to them at a time. And then you have consumables, which basically it's just an effect that you use during your turn in the movement phase. Then you discard it once the effect is applied. And then the field card, which is you roll a d4 before you play it into your field zone. So if we pull out like our little battle mat here, at the top right of yeah, as you can see right there in the top right, there's a field card zone, and then basically it has an effect that passively applies. But those are the three item cards that we have, and our art cards are more powerful, basically magical effects, spiritual effects, that you can only use one per combat round, but they have very strong effects. And so, but first and foremost, let's go ahead and stick with Battle Axe. Dane, do you want to introduce this one?
Yeah, so Battle Axe is a gear card, so you can attach this to any of your creatures. But when this gear item card is attached to an attacker type creature, the creature's attack actions damage increase by 10 to all targets of its attack actions. That's primary and secondary. So that's pretty solid.
Yep. And this is one that I believe is also in the Gorgonath's Hunters EX battle deck as well. Very good for attacker type creatures, as there are a lot of these gear items tend to be specific for like certain keywords and whatnot. But this is to any attacker, and to plus 10 damage is awesome. That's nothing to scoff at. And that takes us into our first consumable, which is going to be Dark Tome. So the effect of it is discard a card from your hand and draw 3 cards. So it's a draw power card. It has an additional effect that if you discard a dark type creature, draw 6 cards instead. So again, really nice if you're running a dark deck that requires discard or anything like that. Or if you just have a plethora of dark element creatures in your deck and you just want to draw 6 cards, you don't have to really do anything like shuffle your hand into your deck. This is a very strong ability for a consumable item card. It's almost equivalent to like a art card, which is really nice. Yep. But then actually, we can leave that up because we go into our next tome.
The Electric Tome. So again, when you play this card during your movement phase, randomly discard 2 cards from your opponent's hand. So again, Electric Element really excels in disturbing your opponent, their hand, and that kind of stuff. So this is perfect for that. But it has the additional effect. If you consume 1 electric mana from your mana pool, your opponent reveals their hand, and you may discard any 2 items from that you find there instead. So instead of just randomly discarding, you get to choose 2, or look at everything you have and choose the 2 that you want to discard. So
very trolly, especially if you have somebody that's like, oh yeah, like I have something I'm saving for like my turn in the movement phase or my turn in the attack phase or something like that. It's just, this is a really good way to allow your opponent to just have a bad day. And then that takes us to our last tome, which is the Flame Tome. So again, it is also a consumable item card, and it has the effect: look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Choose one of the revealed cards and add it to your hand. Shuffle the remaining cards back into your deck, so it's a good shuffle power. But it also has the additional effect: if the card you selected is a flame-type creature, you may play it onto your battlefield, even if you have already played a primary creature this combat round. And so super-duper strong for getting flame card or your flame decks set up quickly. That's the top 7 cards, so that's a big chunk of your deck since there's only 60 cards per deck. So it's a little bit over a tenth of your deck that you're able to actually look at.
Yeah, so far, as far as flame element decks that I've seen, that's a card that's in every single one of them so far.
It's really bad if it's not in a flame element deck. I mean, it's less bad or it's less good, but it's really really strong in flame element. And that takes us to another gear item, the Gambison.
Yeah, so the Gambeson's cool. So you can attach this to one of your creature cards. So while this geared card is attached to an active creature, the creature gains immunity to broken, stunned, and poison status ailments. Attach this card does not remove any existing status ailments. So if you are already affected by broken, stunned, or poisoned, it doesn't remove them. However, if you're playing decks, I think in particular dark decks like using these specific status elements, you basically become immune to them. So
Also broken too. A lot of earth creatures use broken, and a lot of, go figure, electric decks use the stun status ailment as well, and so it really keeps you safe. Especially if you have like certain cards that really function at, like, for example, low mana cost, it protects you from broken, or like you have a deck that's like super duper healy, and you kind of go guns a-blazing and soak up a lot of damage. You don't want to be poisoned because you want the ability to be able to heal, so this protects you from that. And if you have really quick movement decks, stunned really stunts you in that. And so great for all of those kind of play styles.
Yep.
Which takes us into our I believe this is our first art. So again, you can only play one art each combat, or during your movement phase, each combat round. But this one is Gentle Aura, which is discard one card from your hand. If you do, draw 4 cards. So it's a very powerful draw power.
Very good. Yep.
Not much else to say about it.
Which we have another consumable. So our next consumable is Glow Twig Lumber. So place one creature from your discard pile face down on top of your deck. So it's really good for getting creatures out of your discard pile.
Yep, and it's any of them. So you can just, it's not random. You can select whoever you want and then just put it right on top of your deck. So if you have things that synergize with like drawing cards from the top of your deck, you can also use that to get it into your hand as well. It's pretty good.
Yep.
And our first field card is going to be Goblin Smithy. So as mentioned with the field rule, roll a d4, and then it is active in your field zone for a number of combat rounds equal to that result, with basically the first round being 1. So the effect is whenever your opponent attaches a gear item card to an active creature, flip a coin. On the result of a heads, your opponent discards the gear item card instead of attaching it. Really good, especially there are decks out there that I am assuming that are going to be built that are based around gear, and this is a really trolly way to be able to basically foil their plans by literally you doing nothing. It's just a passive effect that affects your opponent. And that brings us to our next card.
Yeah, so it is another consumable, Linen Cloth. So search your deck for a creature and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. So this is going to be one of your main sources of creature search in any given deck. Most decks that I've seen who require creature search, they use Linen Cloths. So
yeah, this is probably going to be a 2 or 3 line in most decks, especially in these early sets for sure. And we come to our next item card, or a gear item card, which is the Longbow. And so as we can see in the little graph here, targets, you get when the creature that this gear item is attached to makes a single target attack action, deal 10 damage to creatures in both spaces behind the primary target as secondary targets. And so again, if they're only attacking one creature, you can attack the creature that's in the front line in the combat lane and potentially attack up to 2 other creatures as well. So that's pretty good. And again, it kind of stacks with other creatures that increase primary and secondary attacks as well, and so it gives them the ability to have a broader range of people to hit potentially at higher damages. And that takes us to our next field card.
Yeah, Nosragod. So one of the big baddies of the set, Gorgonath. This is where he hails from. The field card, so you roll a d4, and for the result for how many turns, your opponent's active creatures have no damage resistances. So it's really good against decks that you, if you're really concerned, like for example, if you're playing a Nosragod deck, if you're really concerned about flame element type creatures, play Nosragod, and at least for up to 4 turns, you your opponent has no damage resistances to things.
So you're whacking for full damage, and it's really nice. And again, yes, it is basically the keep of an evil creature. This can also be played in good decks too, so it could be used either or. But thematically, definitely it's great for orc decks, and you can actually see this in the Gorgonath Hunters as well. Our next card is going to be a gear item called Robes. And so while this gear item is attached to a support type creature, when the creature card is slain, add a D4 basic mana to your mana pool. So basically this is a contingency plan for your support type creatures. You attach this to them, and if your opponent targets them, you could potentially get up to 4 basic mana, which counts as any mana type to your mana pool. And so it either deters them, or if they are just trying to attack things to basically blank out your board, there's a cost to it. Which takes us to Rod.
Yeah, Rod's cool. It's another gear item card. So again, attach it to one of your creatures. And while this gear item card is attached to a support type creature, when it uses a support action, flip a coin. If the result is heads, roll a d4 and add mana matching one of your creatures, one of the creature's type to your mana pool equal to the result. So for example, if you had this on King Alexander, he's a dual type, right? So you would choose the type for that. So it's really good because especially like a lot of people decide to forego using their support actions. This allows you to be able to use your support actions, but also generate mana as well.
The nice thing, too, is a lot of support creatures tend to have a pretty cheap cost for it. And so by having this onto your active creatures, it either negates the cost or drastically reduces the cost of the support action, while potentially also gaining you more mana as well. It's a very, very good. Yeah, it's really good. But it is hidden behind a coin flip, so it's not always the case, but you never know. It's a good one. I think it would be a little bit broken if it wasn't hidden behind a coin flip.
It would definitely be artifact status for sure.
Yeah. But that takes us into our next art, which is a shadow swipe. So this is the first Voidin art that we've seen. So there are 2 types of arts in this game. Arts that have the keyword manic and arts that have the keyword Voidin. There is a strict good and evil kind of dichotomy in the world of Everlast. However, you can technically use Voidin arts in your good decks, but you need a way to be able to generate Void Flow. And there's only one way to do that at the current moment. And so for good decks. But there are a lot of options to be able to generate it for evil decks. And so in this case, you have to pay the cost of 2 void mana, basically 2 void flow, to use Shadow Swipe, which is a 20+ to a single target creature. And with the effect, you may choose any of your opponent's active creatures to be the primary target of this art. And then it has the additional effect, deal an additional 10 damage to the target for each point of damage that you have taken from your life point total. And so it's awesome. This is good for dark decks, especially. If you are down to like 1 life point, then that basically buffs it up to a 90 damage for only 2 void flow. And again, it's damage on your movement phase, which is awesome, and it targets anybody. So it's a pretty good card.
Brings us to our next gear item card, Short Bow. Again, it's a gear, so while this gear is item is attached to your active creature, when the creature uses an attack action, flip a coin. On the result of a heads, your opponent discards the top card of their deck. So it's kind of cool. It doesn't like damage necessarily, but it's very trolly as far as like manipulating your opponent's deck potentially. So very unique as far as gear items go.
Yeah, one of our playtesters, he actually has a deck built off of this, and as you saw in the Dark Element, I believe it's the Balu Fiend, which his whole purpose is to deck you out. And so just attach this to all of your creatures, and every time they perform attack actions, just potentially discard all of your opponent's cards before they can do anything. It's kind of nice. And like you said, it's a very good kind of control card, so also really good for electric type decks as well. which takes us to our next manic art, which is Spark. It is an art, so again, you can only play one of them during your turn movement phase, but it has the effect. Choose one of your opponent's active creatures as the target of this art. The target gains the stun status ailment for d4 plus 1 combat rounds. And so, essentially what stunned is the creature cannot move. So they can still perform actions, such as support actions and whatnot, but they cannot move in any way. They're basically stuck where they are. So, pretty good.
Yep. Especially because it's a minimum two turns.
Yes, and it doesn't cost mana to actually use as well. It's just an automatic effect.
It brings us to our next field card. So again, roll a d4 when you play this card into your field zone, and it is active for those d4 combat rounds. But you can apply the following effects. So the effect that will be on your opponent. So when your opponent draws a card at the start of their turn in the movement phase, if the drawn card is a creature, they flip a coin. On the result of a tails, your opponent returns one card from their hand to the bottom of their deck. So again, it punishes your opponent for drawing creatures. And then the player's effect that it gets is when you draw a card at the start of your turn in the movement phase, if the card drawn is a creature, draw an additional card. So it's the opposite. It allows you to get more cards in your hand. So it punishes your opponent, and it behooves you if you have this on your field.
Yeah, this is one of the stronger passive effects because it does two things. Not just benefits you, but it really hurts your opponent. And the Bashflow is actually note. It's actually where Varusik, the Cursed Fang, is from. So the Bashflow is his home and environment. So it is a nice little kind of testament to that. But we do have our next card, which is a item consumable card called Bamboo Lumber. So the effect, when one of your active creatures performs an attack action, you may play this consumable item card. So similar to what we saw in the Heroes of the West with the ingots, normally you play item cards during your turn in the movement phase. However, this is going to be used during your turn in the attack phase, as mentioned in the text of this card. So basically, you just play the card based off of its effects and what it says, even if it does ignore that rule. If you can't, it ignores the rule that you can't play this during your turn in the attack phase. So basically, when one of your active creatures performs an attack action, you may play this consumable item card. The primary target of your creature's attack action deals an additional 20 damage. So again, it's just a nice little bit of you're spending resources to do extra damage to your opponent, which is awesome. Sometimes you need just that extra little bit of damage to get over that mark of usefulness. All right.
Yep, which brings us to our next Manic Art, Debilitating Ray. And so you can only play one of these during the movement phase. So choose one of your opponent's active creatures in the unactivated position and rotate it into the activated position. So it's just a free activate on one of your opponents. So
gosh, this is such a good card.
It's really good.
I can see this is going to be one of the arts that's going to be run in every deck. If not one, two, or even three. This is one of those things that just... there's never not an opportunity to use it. There's obviously like maybe best times to use it, but it's always good to activate your opponent's creatures. They can't do anything, and then they have to spend resources such as rations and whatnot in order to get them.
Especially if you go first in the turn order, if you can have activated by using this, then it basically inhibits them from doing anything, moving, using any kind of skills even in the movement phase, and it just basically makes them stuck.
Yep, absolutely. It's a really, really strong card, so use it. If you pull it, keep it. Use it in all of your decks. But that takes us to our next card, which is the Healing Potion. With this, it is a consumable item, so when you play this card, flip a coin until you get tails. Choose one of your active creatures and heal it to 20 hit points for each result of a heads. Really good. I mean, you potentially don't heal anything, but you have a potentially unlimited amount of healing that you can do. And so if you can pair this with cards such as Camela, and use drink tokens to reflip to just get your creatures to heal all the way up. But yes, it does have coin flips involved in that, so you might like it, you might not like it.
Use wisely.
Use wisely, exactly.
Which brings us, again, as we had talked about in the Heroes of the West, the introduction of mana crystals as a consumable that allows you to get mana into your mana pool for just using a consumable. So this is Mana Crystal Dark. It's the dark element. So the consumable, basically roll a d4, add dark mana to your mana pool equal to the rolled value. So super strong. Again, for every dark deck, this will probably be a 3-line that's run in it.
Yep. And it'll make these packs useful even further in the future once more are released. And then that takes us into our next one, which is Mana Crystal Electric. So it has a similar effect. I'll roll a d4, add electric mana to your mana pool equal to the rolled value, ending with
the Mana Crystal Flame. And this is the same thing. It's just for flame mana. So roll a d4 and add flame mana to your mana pool equal to the rolled value.
And that brings us into probably the strongest draw card in both sets, as it were, which is Mana Draw the Art. It is a manic art, and it has the effect shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 6 cards. There is no downside of using this. You're not discarding anything, and you are getting pretty much a full hand. Drawing 6 cards is really, really nice. This will be a 3-line in every deck.
Yeah. That, I would say the one that also is discard 1 card and add 4 to your hand, I think is also going to be really popular. But yes, this one's objectively better.
Yep. And so, with that, I have a hunch people are going to be wanting to see lots of this card and lots of it pulled. And so good luck to you for those who are opening packs to it. But that takes us into our next card.
Yeah, the Mana Potion. It's a consumable. So search your deck for an art and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. Which is really good because, again, arts are very powerful, and it's a consumable that allows you to search your deck for any of your arts. If you're looking for a specific art in your deck, this is a great way to be able to make sure you get it.
And that's just it. It's a specific art. And so it's not just like reveal until you get a random art. It's like you're like, oh, I could really use this, whether it's a gust, debilitating ray, mana draw, whatever the case. This is going to be pretty good. Again, it does take up a room in your deck, but it's a great way to be able to gain control and gain the upper hand. And our next card is going to be our Wool Cloth, which is shuffle a creature from your discard pile back into your deck. Pretty good.
Yep. Get them out of your discard pile.
Nothing else to say about that.
Yep. Then we got Flames of Landisfrane, which is a manic art, so you can only play one of these in your movement phase. It is hefty. As you can see, it does have a mana cost in order to play it for 2 flame mana, and then 3 basic mana, so you can use any element type for the last 3. But Flames of Landisfrane is the manic art, and it does 70 damage to the primary target and then 40 damage to all the secondary targets. So you choose the creature, and then basically it explodes everywhere. Yep. In the surrounding area, centered on the character you choose. So you may choose one of your opponent's active creatures to be the primary target of this art. After resolving the effects of this art, take 1 damage from your life point total. So it does a ton of damage at the risk of you losing a point of life. So there may be situations, especially in dark decks, where this may be really good to use.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just one of those things, like, it punishes your opponent for clumping their creatures. There are some kind of death ball-y decks and some synergies. For example, one that I can think of right off the top of my head is like the electric element for the Razing of Helix. You have Throndor, where he's got a lot of effects if he has things and creatures around him. This is a great way to just be able to wipe out that death ball effect that is happening at your opponent's board. And yeah, it's a good one. Like Dane said, it is a hefty cost, but it has a very potent effect. And that takes us into our artifact cards, our 3 artifact cards of the set, starting with Silk Cloth. Again, artifact cards, you can only have 1 artifact in your deck. Not one of each different kind of artifact card, just 1 total in your deck. And so you have to be picky and choosy about which ones that you are going to do. But the Silk Cloth is a consumable item, which has the effect, if you are able to do so, place 1 primary type creature from your discard pile onto your battlefield in the unactivated position. So, pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of situations where you're like, oh, gosh darn it, my so-and-so got put into the discard pile, and I need him, or I need her. And so this is a great way to be able to pull him out and start using him right away.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and our next artifact card is a pretty cool one, the Silverwood Lumber. It is a consumable. So when one of your active creatures performs an attack action, you may play this consumable item card. Again, a card that can be used during your attack phase, as stated on the card's text. The primary target of the creature's attacks actions receives an additional 50 damage, so it's basically a free 50 damage boost to any of your attack actions.
Yep.
So very good.
Yeah, much better than 20. Extra 50 damage is definitely enough to put most attacks over the edge, especially with some of your EX creatures to just one-shotting pretty much anything. Very good. And that takes us to our very last card of the set, which is going to be the Void Crystal. Again, this is an artifact. You can only have one artifact in your deck, but it has the effect, roll a d6, and then add Void Flow to your mana pool equal to the rolled value. So this is one of the ways to be able to add Void Flow. There are a handful of ways right now, primarily between Dark and Electric right now, those two elements that allow you to gain a Void Flow to your mana pool. But this allows you to be able to use your Void and Arts and play Voiding creatures, onto your battlefield, things like that. And this is just a free drop, so it's a D6.
Yeah, and again, there are very limited ways in the first two sets to be able to generate Void Flow. This is going to be your most consistent way to do so.
For sure. And it's honestly pretty strong. If you get that 6, like that's going to be enough to power your Void creatures for if not one giant turn to a couple really good turns. So it's really nice. But that is our last card of the Razing of Helix. Thank you so much for those who have joined us on this journey these past 7 weeks, going over all the elements from Flame, Frost, Earth, Electric, Light, Dark, and the multi-elements, and these cards such as the Arts and item cards. It's been a great time being able to go over this with you. Again, go check out our Heroes of the West. We have completed those as well, and everything is available on our YouTube channel, so you can check out the Everlast a trading card game before it does get released. And if it is not already released, by the time you get it, look forward to it coming to stores and also on the Fantasy Forge website. But we will see you all in the next one. Lots of shipments are going to be starting to go out for those who backed us on Kickstarter. And also we're going to have a lot more videos of kind of play tutorials and whatnot coming out in the near future. But until then, we will see you later, and may Alomnia guide you. Bye, everybody.